take one more.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the City of Clawson Planning Commission held for Tuesday, January 23rd. I'm going to open the meeting at 7:30. Will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Fenton? Here. Mr. Jacobson?
Jim, take one.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Kucera?
Here.
Mr. McHale?
Here.
Ms. Prowse? Here. Ms. Scripture?
Here.
Mr. Shepard?
Here.
Mr. Watson?
Here.
Agenda item number 4 is approval of the regular minute meetings from January the 9th.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting of the Planning Commission from
January 9th.
January 9th.
Support.
2018.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Motion, support. Everybody good with the minutes? No changes, corrections? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepard?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Item agenda number 5, I see there's a typo in here. It's consideration of a site plan approval. It should read 116 through 140 South Main Street in the City Center District. That's the Laundry Palace. Greg, you want to address this?
This is the second time you've seen this. As you'll recall, this is a site plan proposing a facade change on this property. The old facade fell down. And so the last time they were here, we went through the conditions of approval that were related to the prior site plan that had been approved for the site. And there were some issues with respect to compliance with those, and so they brought back a new submittal that attempts to address those conditions. So I'll go through those first. So number 1 was that all roof-located mechanical equipment, including air conditioning, heating units, transformers, et cetera, that will be visible from the exterior, including screening required by the Planning Commission, is to match the existing parapet. So currently it's unscreened. The screening that had been there before fell down. They have submitted a detail that was stapled to the site plan set that shows a wood lattice screen. I guess it's your job tonight to decide whether or not that wood lattice screen is consistent with the prior condition of approval, and if not, be acceptable to you as an amendment to the site plan. In our opinion, it is not consistent with the architecture of the building. I think it's the same thing that fell down before, and so you should discuss that. Number 2 was a condition that we did not find a problem with. Number 3, the striped loading space exists. That was not an issue. Number 4, the ADA compliant ramp per the city engineer's letter of July 29th, 2013. There are 2 parking spaces that are designated on the plan as being barrier-free. One of them needs to be van accessible. A sufficient amount of width has now been shown for the space in front of the building, in front of Laundry Palace, 16 feet, but it's not configured properly. The hatched area has to be 8 feet wide, and so that should be corrected on the site plan. Number 5, related to the pole sign that was to have been removed as of the sunset date for those, which was December 2014. It has not yet been removed. The notes on the plan now indicate that it will be removed, so that's resolved. Number 6, dumpster gate was not an issue. Number 7, the gooseneck lights on the west side of the building and the reduction of pole-mounted lights to a height of 2 feet, which I believe was that the pole-mounted lights were to have been removed and the bases left. As we talked about, I think last time, there are not gooseneck lights on the rear of the building. They've now shown properly on the site plan the fact that they have wall packs back there. That would be a change to the site plan from what you previously approved, if you find that acceptable, if that's what they're proposing. They're also proposing to retain the pole lights now in front. However, they haven't provided any information on the site plan as to the height of the poles or the nature of the fixtures on top of the poles, so that would have to be added. And all those will need to comply with LDR 341035 in terms of light spill. Number 8, clean the back of the lot of debris. In addition to landscaping area where the shrubs will be, have annual potted plants to be included and be responsible to maintain landscaping by the owner or the applicant will have to come back before the planning commission. So the landscaping on the site has suffered with weeds and die-off over time. There's no evidence that annuals were ever utilized. Certainly they were not there this year. The revised plan shows unidentified shrubs along the Main Street side of the parking lot. That is consistent with what was there on the original approved site plan, but those shrubs need to be identified by size and species on the plan. So then in terms of the new site plan matters, principally it's about the building materials. We've talked about this before. They have a metal fascia that they're proposing, which you found to be acceptable, except they had not previously broken up the facade into increments of not more than 60 feet, as is required now by the city center district form-based regulations. And so they've now added a vertical metal panel in there. It's not dimensioned how wide it is on the plan. That needs to be dimensioned. You should decide whether that trim piece in there fulfills your objective in breaking up the facade treatment. I think we talked about this last time, but I'll mention it again. It's a corner building. And under the new regulations, corner buildings are supposed to have special architectural treatment that accentuate the prominent corner of the building. The south side of the building is not addressed on the plan. It's currently painted split-face block. There are no canopies and awnings proposed. That's just informational. If they're to be added in the future, they'll have to amend the site plan. Exterior lighting, they show replacing the gooseneck lights on the front. Those now require a clearance of not less than 8 feet to the bottom of the fixture, so that will need to be dimensioned on the site plan. And then signage, they gave you some pictures and some shapes on the site plan, or the elevation drawing that's submitted with the site plan, but not really sufficient regulatory information to regulate the signs on the building, as we just went through down on 14 Mile for the Noble Fish Building there. We need to know what the consistent design of those signs is proposed to be, and then we need the maximum dimensions for each sign called out on the site plan as well. That's now required that you approve that as part of any site in the city center district. So we're comfortable approving this plan, assuming that they agree to address the issues to your satisfaction. I recommend 8 conditions there if you're of a mind to do so. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Greg?
So clarify for me, Greg, you're saying in regards to the existing pole sign, you're saying that has to come down? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. That was what they agreed to previously, that it would be removed by, that it wouldn't be used for any new tenants and it would be removed by the sunset date. And so it wasn't. And currently that sign is not a permitted sign under the city's current sign ordinance because there are no freestanding signs allowed downtown.
Okay.
So if we, let's say we agree to the site plan and move forward with it, of the things that need changed, what do we, what type of timeframe, what constraints can we put down as far as having them come back?
Well, really, occupancy is supposed to require a temporary CO, right? This is kind of the wicked problem that we've run into a number of times where the property's already occupied when we're reviewing the site plan, and then things don't get completed. I think you should set dates for compliance. I mean, much of it is simply providing information or accurate information on the site plan. There are a couple things that I suggested, and your discussion will determine whether or not it's needed, should come back to you. I've suggested that they bring another means of rooftop equipment screening back to you. I've suggested that they need to bring the wall signs back to you. I mean, when you approve a site plan, it's good for a year, absent anything else. And so they would have a year to correct the improvements. But remember, this started, or to complete the improvements, but remember, this started as a show cause hearing in the first place.
Back in June, wasn't it?
Correct, because there was not compliance with the currently approved site plan. And so I think it's very appropriate to set, a schedule for completing these improvements that, since they bring the site back into compliance, whereas it is not now.
Okay, so we're looking at dates and then updates.
I would think so.
Yeah. Okay.
At some point, can't we ask for a bond?
Yeah, I think you could ask for a bond for the things that are incomplete. As I say, that's appropriate at the point where the building's going to be occupied, right? As we're going
Well,
to talk
but they're
about
already
3 more times later tonight. So,
Right.
I don't know why this one would be any different.
No, and that's my concern, the fact that we just went through this
Why
with
not
the
bond?
properties on 14 Mile, right? I mean, as far as the way that the signs are supposed to be presented, how they're attached to the building, what additional requirements we had for that. And they've got to get up to that level, in my opinion.
Does that include anything outside the 8 recommendations?
Well, as far as you've got signage, right, as one of the wall signage is not approved, and the concept of dimensions for the signage shall be submitted to the planning commission for approval, right? And so we just went through this with the last property review as far as having the signs attached, what it's supposed to look like, and the square dimensions and the concept. And I think it was not exactly what we were looking for, but it was close enough that we were saying, okay, that's what we're going for, right? And so I don't know, based on this, we don't even meet that.
No, you don't have dimensions, you don't have characteristics, you just have pictures of what signs might look like. And so you need to have the details called out so that when Jim gets a permit application, he can look at it and he can say, okay, this is channel letters on a raceway. The raceway matches the color of the building.
Exactly.
I can issue that permit, as we, by the way, just did today.
This is a little different from the one that you've already looked at. They took their original signs and already put them back up on the building after the facade was removed. Now he has to put on the new facade that's coming in. Do we leave the signs up on the buildings? I mean, that's what we've been waiting for. The only person that doesn't have a sign is the Laundry Palace, and Gary's here tonight also. So.
I just would like to mention about the signs. These signs were previously permitted and
Can you come to the
approved.
microphone, please?
State your name.
All of the signage that's there now, that's on the building, was previously permitted and approved by Jim Elvis. So these are not signs that
That's
were just...
before this came into effect.
before
the
the
facade was removed.
Yeah, before the front canopy had to be removed. I mean, all these signs were approved previously. These aren't signs that just, appeared out of nowhere that we just threw up on the building or that the tenants threw up. I mean, all these tenants, they've paid for these signs. It's part of their businesses. So these are not signs that, we just came up with and threw up on the building.
Are they, excuse me, are they non-conforming at this point in time? Are they oversized or?
Well, with our new ordinance that says that they have to be architecturally compatible, that's up to you guys to decide. I believe they are within the 24 square foot
Within the sign.
requirement.
So how long have we had this ordinance on the signs having to be architecturally compatible?
Came into
Within 6 months, right?
effect last
Within si-
year.
And the antique place has been there for how long? It's probably your newest building there, is that correct, or is there one that's newer?
No, the massage has been there for at least 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years.
So my question is, I mean, we approved it at the time prior to having this, when we put in a new clause, but wouldn't they, for the signs, I'm just thinking a new business like the antique place, I imagine it's difficult to get a new sign cost-wise. I could be mistaken, but I'm just thinking from that perspective, the signs haven't been there that long. We've only had this new clause for architecturally compatible for 6 months. Is it something that we really say to them, well, it doesn't matter what you guys did with the sign or bought a sign 2 years ago or 6 months ago, you need to get a new sign? I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if that necessarily is a situation with the antique sign, right? Because I think one
So
of
you're
the
saying
things
it
that
might
we're.
be compatible? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we need to review that, right? So as far as we don't have the details enough at this point in time, I don't believe.
The details were on the original permit, which I can get to you.
But I don't think we're reviewing this for a site plan because of the facade being removed, right? So, I mean, I don't want to necessarily recreate the wheel, right? But at the same time, you need to get your building up to compliant, right? And so part of that is the sign ordinance.
Well, Jay, it's very much like the other site.
That's right.
I mean, those businesses
Very
all
similar,
existed
but-
as well, and they took the facade off, they had to take the signs down, and not all the signs could come back up, because some of them were non-conforming signs. Once you take it off the building, it's not a lawful nonconformity anymore.
Okay.
So it may well be that most or all of the signs
Are in
are
compliance.
consistent and are compliant, but the site plan now, for a city center site, needs to establish the criteria for those. And then, if a new business comes into the building, then it meets those same criteria that have been established by the site plan you approved.
So do we go sign by sign? Because
No,
like
no.
I'm looking at the one with the R. I think it's a great sign. I think it looks nice. It's visually appealing. I'm looking at Pure Balance. I think that sign looks nice and fits their business. The antique one? I don't know. I mean, how do we make this decision? I guess I'm more of asking a question than saying I look at it, but I mean, is that what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to look at each sign and decide, do they fit with the facade? Is that what we're looking at here?
No, I think last time we talked about them being, consistent with one another and consistent with the architecture, right? And so they came in with like a typical detail, said channel letters on a raceway, internally illuminated. So you knew all the signs would be like that. There wouldn't be any box signs. There wouldn't be any like plexiglass signs. They'd all be channel letters on a raceway. And the planning commission felt like, I think as Commissioner Shepard said, that may not have been optimal, but it was good enough to get them underway, given the circumstances in that case, which are probably fairly similar to what they are in this case. Get a typical detail that everybody can adhere to, and then you are assured that things are going to be consistent in the future.
How do we do that, though?
Mr. Mahmood, would you like to address some of these, out of the eight items that we have here? You got a list in front of you, I'm sure.
No, I didn't receive a review letter back to me with anything on it before this meeting, so. You mind if I-
Excuse me. Out of the 8 items, number 4, 5, and 6, there's simply a matter of things that have to be called out on the plan. I don't see that as being a big problem for you.
No, that should be fine. 4, 5, and 6 are no problem. we can put that additional information into.
Okay, yeah, I don't see that as a problem. Number 7, a non-conforming freestanding sign shall be removed. I think we're in agreement on that, right?
Yes, and we've already have a contractor who is on board to get it out, but obviously it's just gonna have to be weather permitting.
Okay, that's taken care of. So the 2 problems that I'm facing here, well, your pole lights have to comply with our regulation, which I'm sure they can be inspected by Jim, and we can sign off on that. Van accessible parking space has to be properly striped. I'm sure that can be handled.
Yeah, we can restripe the parking lot, that shouldn't be an issue.
So you're not finding any difficulties with these?
No, I mean, the method for rooftop screening, this was the method that we had gone through last time. Obviously, this time, what we're doing differently is we're anchoring it, through the actual bottom of the roof, so, through the roof deck, the screening.
material.
I specifically remember last time you were here, we asked you not to put up the wood lattice.
That's
So
why I just said
I'm
anchoring
sticking to
what?
that. I would like something different than the wood
Yes,
lattice.
that's why I'm saying anchoring what, because we were very specific that lattice was not acceptable, so if that's what you're anchoring, then,
Well, what do you recommend? I mean, what would you like to see it be?
Well, that's part of my problem. The statement here says that the method for rooftop equipment screening is not approved and shall be resubmitted to the Planning Commission for approval. And I don't know that it's our forte to know the engineering of a structure like that. I would think our building department, do we have codes and regulations as to how this thing has to be built?
I believe your original proposal is the screening for the rooftop unit has to match the exterior facade. And back when we did the original site plan, they were worried about creating wind shear up there and stuff like that. And I remember coming back in front of this board with pictures of the lattice and stuff. There's a lot of documentation that we were looking at for the original files that I remember coming back in front of the boards, and I'm not finding the documentation in the files. It's
Okay.
misplaced right now.
That's where I think that the building department's strength would be, is knowing how this thing should be constructed, what's going to make it sound. From our point of view, we're going to tell you if we like the looks of it or not.
Okay. I mean, the issue is going to be obviously safety for us.
Right,
I mean,
correct.
we just want to make sure that if we do put corrugated metal up there, we're not going to run into an issue of it, potentially hurting somebody down the line.
We have some of
If
this,
it's properly anchored, it won't be a problem.
what do we have in this building? As I walked in the back, I looked up and I saw that we have screening on our equipment, and is it not metal?
The screening is blown down and hasn't.
No, not for this building.
Here, City
For
Hall.
us here.
Yeah, we have the, basically, barn siding, the metal corrugated.
Which is, I'm not,
But just keep in mind, it's just
much higher
one unit there. I mean, we're
parapet than
going
theirs.
across, the entire length of the roof, so
Right.
it's going to be a little bit different.
I can see this board looking at something aesthetically and how it looks, but I don't think that we have the mechanical knowledge to how it's actually constructed.
Yeah, that's
So I would tend to leave that to our building department,
Okay,
if you can work
But
with them
not
on that.
lattice.
And then
okay. No
everything
problem.
else you seem to get agreement with, and then our wall signage is not approved, and the concept and dimensions for that signage shall be submitted to the Planning Commission for approval. That's another Bailey work that we walk into. We have to look at these signs and agree if we like them or not. Apparently, they're all within size limitations, so I don't see a problem with that. And is it going to be our personal opinion whether we like the sizes, the colors, the dimensions?
I think the guidance you're given is that they should be architecturally consistent, right? I think both with one another, and so you don't have a variety of different styles of signs, and with the building. And, you're right, that there's some amount of discretion to be
I
exercised.
understand the point of it, it's just that it leaves us open for a lot of personal thoughts.
Well, you're not proposing it, right? It's the applicant's job to propose it. You just have to review it and determine whether that proposal meets that standard.
They show us pictures, and we tell them if we like it or not.
I mean, just
Well,
keep
no,
in,
it shouldn't be pictures. It should be on the site plan. There should be, like we had with the other site, at the end of the day, finally, we had a typical that had materials and the characteristics of the sign, and then, the dimensions of the various sign locations on the building, not what they looked like, not what colors they were even, other than that the raceway matched the building.
Okay, so you're looking to get a site plan approval, and I don't know that we can give you an approval with these items outstanding at this point in time. Can we add these items to the drawings and take care of some of the problems? get more detail on how you're going to screen off the thing, get it approved by our building department, and come at us again with this?
So you're saying
Is that-
conditionally
is that
approve it,
feasible?
or completely not approve it?
table it?
Are you saying table, or are you saying conditionally approve it?
It's going to be up to him to have that option, but he's got to get our temperature in a sense, right?
I'm
To
asking.
say- Yeah, I think it's going to be up to the applicant, but are you suggesting to him that he may want a table?
I think you may want to upgrade your site plan drawings, talk to our engineering department about the roof thing, and then check out your pole lights, make sure your van accessible parking is there. Once you check these things off the list, I think you're going to stand a better chance.
But just to be clear, the site conditions, right, in order for them to match what is there, and what will be on the site plan, we have to have the site plan approved first, then we can make so in terms of like the van, the properly striping for the van accessible space, obviously we can show that on the site plan, we do have that on the site plan, but the site conditions then have to match, which means that obviously the weather has to be in a position where we can get someone to come out and restripe it.
Oh, I understand it might not be done weather-wise, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a given, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's more the things that need to be represented onto the site plan, right? So, you had mentioned the sign being taken off. If that's not on the site plan, that's fine. If it's not out of the ground until the weather permits. But I think we will also ask for a bond in that scenario, just to give you a heads up when you come back. So anything that isn't going to be done in time because of the weather, just be prepared for us to ask you for a bond in order to approve that site plan.
That would be mostly to cover the parking, striping, and the removal of the sign.
And the roof,
Yep.
And the roof,
Top.
yes, the roof thing.
and the
So-
shrubs, landscaping.
Ms.
what's-
Reckler, question for you. As far as the signs go, let's say that we don't find all the signs to conform to what we require. Who's responsible for the sign at that point? Do you pay for the new sign for the building, or does your tenants pay for the new sign for the building?
No, I mean, just like we don't have a right to tell a tenant what their sign should be, that's a tenant's responsibility as a business owner. I mean, they've got to come up with a sign that meets your requirements, whatever they are. So we don't engage in signage, nor do we, nor will we propose to engage in signage. I mean, each tenant is responsible for their own sign, and the sign is also something they can take with them if they ever leave. It's not our property.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, and what's the feeling of the board then? Do any of us feel we should approve a site plan, or should we just postpone this for,
My recommendation will be postponing.
that's what you would feel?
As far as the signage goes, okay, we have some pictures.
Yep.
Okay, this can be used as a guide if, we're looking at it from an aesthetic point of view. If I've got a business, okay, I don't want my sign to look like, say, the Palace or anything like that. If we are looking at these pictures, say, okay, these are, I won't put the stamp of approval on it, but a good guide as to what the signs would look like on the site plan.
Well,
'Cause
but
that's what we're
I'm
looking
not sure
for.
that that's what we're saying, because I think
Right.
that Pure Balance is not architecturally similar to the other signs. So I think when coming back, that has to be addressed as well.
I mean, also keep in mind the signage is not entirely in my hands, right? The tenant has to come back with what they want their sign to look like. So it's not just, timeline-wise, that's not just something that I can control. Obviously I've got to go back to the tenant and tell her to go, make a mock-up of her sign, or give me the additional dimensions of her sign, or get it off the permit. But, to come up with a new design for a sign, that's something that, require her, her agreement in working with us on.
Presumably she wants to have a sign, and so,
Sure,
she'll be motivated to do that.
sure.
Okay, do you find any problem with working with us on this?
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
From a building standpoint of view, if you approve his corrugated metal siding, he probably needs to order that 5 weeks in advance. So if you're not going to vote on the approved site plan, at least give him some direction whether he can order that now.
So we can't conditionally approve the site plan with a bunch of these conditions? Do we have to actually table
We've
these?
done that before,
Okay,
and
I
we
see.
could do that. I'm just
Yeah, I mean-
saying that, let's see if we can clear some of these up first and
And
then
then,
go at it once again.
because we keep doing this.
And aesthetically, I don't have any problem with the aluminum corrugated on the roof. My problem is how it's attached. And I don't think we have the knowledge that that's where the building department has to come in and make sure there's,
I mean, obviously, so that we can, at least begin
to get going.
I mean, to begin to also contract to get going for site work. If there is a conditional approval, and with these conditions in it, then we can work with the administration. I can bring the tenants back in, whoever signed that you would like to have that, if you want all three of the other tenants to come in. Gary is here today from the Laundry Palace to discuss his sign. But if you'd like the other three tenants to come as well, then they can show up for a planning commission meeting here in the future and discuss their signage with you.
I don't think there's a concern with the other signs. Is there at this point?
So which one do we have
Well,
a concern with?
Possibly, but we don't know, right? I mean, as far as the way that it's presented
No.
and how we've looked at it in the past, especially the last property, how is that going to be put together as far as a site plan that we can approve?
That's the only one that I can see that could be non-compliant.
When you say that's the only one, which one are you referring to, Annie?
The Pure Balance, which it's not the, what's it called, the rail.
Channel letters?
One other concern I have too is the proposed east elevation, the fascia. I know we asked you last time you were here to break that up with some of these lights, although I don't quite understand why the architect would have placed the tenant sign for Laundry Palace so far away from the door.
That was actually something that we were going to bring to your attention today. We were hoping that we could move that break closer to above his door, and then that way he would have that space there open for his sign.
I mean, I think the way this is done is a bit strange anyways, because several of the lights aren't above the doors. So for safety and security, it seems a little bit strange the way it's done. So I'd welcome seeing that redone. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels.
Can you say that last part again?
Several of the goosenecks are not above the doors, the
Oh.
corresponding doors, so they're not offering a lot of security in terms of light.
Was the intent of the gooseneck or the lighting to match up with the fact that, breaking up that space with trim? And you decided to combine the lighting with the trim?
I mean, I believe that was his intention, although we spoke with him after thinking that maybe we would, we were potentially thinking about having lit signs for individuals, but this was determined to be perhaps the best option in order to light the front of the building. Match it with the break so that the front of the building had additional light, so that it wasn't dark in some areas.
No, I agree. I think that's great. It just, the way it's broken up seems a bit strange to me. It's a little disorienting as you approach the building, where the entrances are to which buildings and the corresponding lights.
It generally breaks up into tenant spaces because of the Art Collective. So there's, on either side of the Art Collective are the two lights, and then, there's one to the end of the NT, or the end of the Pure Balance, and then Gary, the Laundry Palace, given its size, would have, one somewhere within that space in the middle and one at the end to be at the corner. So each corner of the building would have light, and then, working in from there, basically trying to match it to the tenants, to break up the tenant spaces as well. But we can change it.
Yeah, I don't think it does it very well. I agree with the principle. I don't think it's orienting for the customers.
It's kind of an unusual design because the way the lighting, the gooseneck lighting seems to be lined up, they're taking the whole front footage and kind of subdividing it into equal segments, is basically what I see. And I know it doesn't match the door openings. So, you're looking at, okay, do I want an aesthetically equidistant separation on the corrugation, or how would I want my lights, or if I add an additional light, like, on the door area, but not knowing what that would look like? Or adding more stripes or separations on the corrugation.
Yeah, something, but doing that throws the Laundry Palace sign so far away from the entrance that's the piece that really is throwing me.
Yeah, we were going to potentially ask you if we could move that break above their door so that they would have that whole space for signage.
Okay, in the planner's report here, item number 2, corner buildings. Buildings located on a street corner are supposed to feature architectural treatment that accentuates the prominent corner. The south side of this building is not addressed in the plan, it is currently just painted split-faced block. That's all it is. Do you have any intentions of doing any of that, or?
No, I mean, that's a finished block. I mean, on that.
Finished block.
Yeah, that's a finished block.
Where does this come from, Greg, if you might?
Well, that's the new ordinance, and.
Is this an amenity
so-
that we're requesting, or?
Well, the idea is that there'd be kind of a corner feature, something to accentuate the corner on buildings that are on prominent corners or on corners.
This wouldn't be the only one. We tried to do that too, right? So we tried to do that to the old
Yeah. wrought iron on the
discount
side.
shoe store or whatever it was, that they still have a hanging planter.
Right.
I think this was part of our discussion last time,
It
too.
was.
With this
was.
south side.
It was.
And we didn't seem to have any objections at that time on that,
Yes.
because of the differentiation between the two areas and then the break line.
Personally, I have no problem with it. I just want to know how our ordinance looks at it, because we've put the wrought iron on the one building a couple of years ago. That didn't work out too well. Zioli's Restaurant, we approved a mural for the sign on the side of their building.
Well, they have they're not on a corner as such, but they do have an accentuated architectural feature on the corner of that building.
Tavern on the
that would be an
Main,
example.
I believe we want them to paint a scene on the side of their building facing the liquor store next to them. I think they were talking about having people like seated in a window, some kind of a graphics on their building, which I haven't seen yet, but I think they agreed to do that. I kind of see it as an option. I don't know if we want to force a position on that.
Like I said, I didn't think we had any objections to what was presented at that time.
Correct.
With that picture on the existing south there.
So we could conditionally approve a site plan tonight, or we could just ask to reapply. Any feelings or any?
My concern is, as far as the front, so it's been in disrepair as far as the landscaping in front. How do you want to address that?
I mean, the landscaping is something that was previously approved, obviously, when we were in. So we've kept that same landscaping design. And when we were here last time, it wasn't something that came up that we need to come up with a
No, I
different
didn't say
landscape.
anything, I didn't say anything about different, as in disrepair, right? So the landscaping that's to your neighbor is in far better condition than what is in your property. How do you plan
I
on
would beg to
addressing it?
defer with that. I think our landscaping's a lot better than their landscaping.
No,
As far
when
as
you
the-
walk by
no,
yours in the middle of winter, or middle of summer, when you walk by yours, it's covered in weeds. When you walk by theirs, at least there's control, and I'm not saying that they have anything that's amazingly aesthetically pleasing, but yours always has more weeds. I live a block and a half from there, I
Agreed.
walk by all the time, and I always think,
Absolutely.
God, it would just be nice to see this and not look like it's just a weed bed every summer.
I don't have any concern as far as what's there now. That's not my point. My point is that it's yet maintained.
Sure.
And that goes for anybody.
Sure.
Right? So my point as far as the one that next door to you, they maintain it. I'm not pleased with what's there. I can't change that. And I'm not planning on changing it now. I just need to see as far as that you maintain it.
Sure.
The other thing too, though, is that from what we've seen is that there were supposed to be annuals there. Is there any intent in continuing to do that, or at least starting?
To do that.
Obviously, the issue there is with, what we've got planted and the parking situation there, right? Everyone that comes and parks up into, ends up hitting into the landscaping bed, I think Gary can attest to this as well, ends up killing the plants that are there. People will sit in their cars, the exhaust fumes will come in, and that's how a number of the bushes there have already died, or why they have died, a few of them in the front. So, that's an issue for us, right? How do we plant something there that's going to survive those sorts of conditions?
The only issue I have with the whole statement, and what you said makes sense.
Sure.
But if your argument is that it was already approved, so you guys didn't make any changes, but you're stating to us that it's not surviving there.
Well, no, the
That doesn't-
dead bushes that were there have been cut out and have been removed.
Yeah.
It's not all the bushes, but
Sure.
there were double-edged bushes there, right? So there was one in the front and then one in the back. Some of the ones in the back
Sure.
have gotten cut out.
I'm just saying that you're insinuating that because it was approved previously, that and it's working. There's no need to change it. Clearly, there's a need to change something if the plants aren't surviving. So I think we need to address that. If we're removing shrubbery, then we need to find a way to greenify the rest of the space and places that it is living, right? That would make sense.
I would just say, I don't want to change it, right? We have enough problems there as it is.
So are we
And we're not replacing anything, just maintain it.
Sure.
Right, but the other thing
Put
too
those
is,
annuals in
that's
the
exactly right.
workplace.
So did we or did we not have approval for annuals there? That I've never seen. The only thing I've ever seen that's an annual is actually a perennial weed.
Sure.
Okay, and that's not acceptable. I mean, it's, anyway, I'll leave it there.
And well, that falls under item 4, the size and species of shrubs along Main Street shall be called on the plan. So if you can come back with the markings on your site plan showing us what the plants are and where they're going to be located, that'd be helpful. Perhaps replacing any that are missing,
Okay, I mean, with all due respect, because it's just, I'm getting different,
okay?
just a different interpretation from Commissioner Shepard. You want me to keep what's there, but you like it, you want a maintenance plan, that's fine. We can put together a maintenance schedule to have it there.
And you simply need.
What's
you
there is
simply
not
need them-
identified
you-
on the
Okay, so
plan.
need
you
them-
want it
that's-
identified,
You need them
okay.
ID'd on the site.
Identify what's there on the plan,
Sure.
follow through with the annuals, maintain it properly. Is that the 3?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, anything else? Someone want to come up with a motion to either conditionally approve or approve?
Well, what do they need to spend in order to get this up, right? You need to take the sign down. We need to know when that's going to happen, right?
Are you suggesting, Greg, we table to let them come back so we can set a bond? And they can fix the
I'd like to
site
take,
plan?
I'd like to take one more look at this and see if Mr. Mahmood can cancel off some of these 8 items and come back to us with a clean site plan drawing with all those items on it. I understand the sign's going to be a problem taken down and the pavement's going to be a problem taken down. But at that point in time, I'd feel more comfortable leaving it to administration to follow up on those items and perhaps ask for monies at that time about.
We're not preventing anybody from moving into the building at this point,
No, we're
right?
not.
Okay, that's what I was trying to.
But it's up to you guys whether you want to
I'd like to see it buttoned up.
So would I.
Yeah,
button up.
Yeah.
Well, make a motion then and we'll,
Motion
So-
to button it up?
you got that? Motion to
Second.
button it up. Motion relying on.
So, well, I mean, as far as, when do you think you'd be able to come back? With these are things addressed clearly to the level that we expect. And I think we've been pretty clear as far as what we would expect.
Well, I mean, the signage is going to be something that I've got to go back to the tenants with
Right.
and get additional information from them on. So I guess depending on that, the rest of it, obviously, we've got to come and meet with Jim to discuss the rooftop screening equipment. So that's going to take, time for me to meet with him and bring in our architect and see what we can come up with.
What is this? This is the second.
I mean,
First meeting in March?
Are you leaning for having them come back, or are you leaning to have administration?
I'd like to see it come back. I really would.
I agree with
That's-
that.
I think that's appropriate, in case there is any, thing that need to be clarified. All right, because we're not arguing about a TCO. We're not, it's just about, as far as,
We're not holding up business by doing this,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah.
Good.
Please.
Come
Yep.
to the microphone, please, and explain who you are.
Gary Fryatt with the Laundry Palace, 140 South Main Street. We talk about not hindering the businesses. We're not holding anybody up from being in the businesses or doing business, but I don't find that to be the case. I've got a vinyl sign out in front of my business for the last 8-9 months, waiting for this to all come to fruition. I guess I'd like some clarification on a few things. First of all, as far as, I understand the pole sign and where, how we got to the point where we're taking it down, and although I have a half of that sign.
It's still up, right? You're still.
It's still,
You're still there, right?
That's still up,
Okay.
that's right. Okay. But we're talking about taking it down like right now, and we haven't approved anything to replace it with. And
Well, I mean, we can
in
review.
6 months, it is all
I guess the
changed
point to
from.
that, not to interrupt, I apologize for that, but I think we need to review that, right? So I wouldn't necessarily say take it down immediately unless we have a plan as far as what that sign, I mean, unless there's a differing opinion, right? I think we shouldn't have you be there without a sign, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right, okay. And I guess I'm
agree with you.
looking for, if we want to stay on the sign, I guess I'm looking for some guidelines. I had guidelines 8 months ago and put together a sign that I felt met the guidelines. I'm asking for 30 square feet, which I believe under the original ordinance was permittable with 62 foot of store frontage. And it is channel letters with a logo. I don't necessarily want my sign to look like our collective sign, like the antique sign or any other. So when we talk about having signs that all look the same across a building, I would say that I'm certainly not for something like that. You know, if you have an ordinance that says you can have this type of sign or this type of sign or that type of sign, that should be the ordinance, and we should be able to put that on any storefront that we have. They shouldn't all have to be channel letters. They shouldn't all have to be on raceways. They shouldn't, you know, you should be able to put them on stanchions with individual letters and have them shadowed and lit from behind if that's a approved sign within the city. We should be able to have that type of individuality for the businesses. But you know, we need to get something approved so that you tell me architecturally, or you tell us architecturally that you want us to match what the facade's gonna look like, yet we can't settle on corrugated and order corrugated so that we can then go to the sign companies and say, okay, here's what we're working with. It was my understanding I had to come up with a separate permit it was a separate issue altogether. Once the facade's put up, then I gotta come and pull a permit and get it approved and get my signage put on the building in accordance with the building department. So I guess I'm just looking to let's move things along the best we can. I'm not saying that, you know, there aren't problems both sides, but I just like to see something, if we can come up with any kind of progress today to get things moving would be helpful. The only other concern that I have is, you know, we take the pole sign down, which I've conceded that, okay, that pole sign's got to come down. I don't understand the current lights that are out there. We have 2 lights out there in the parking lot. Can anybody tell me what needs to change on those lights from where they are now to conform to code, or what changes are going to be necessary, or are they coming down, or what is the situation with those lights? Do we know?
Well, what was previously proposed to the planning commission and approved as the former site plan was that they were going to come down. So now that they're not going to come down anymore, as had formerly been agreed to, we just need to know that they comply with the ordinance and don't spill off onto other properties in a way that would be inconsistent with the ordinance. So basically, it just needs to describe what they are on the site plan instead of just having a location for them. And as long as they're compliant, then they can, you know, assuming the planning commission approves that as a change to the site plan, they can remain.
Okay, because I know the last time we were here, original site plan in 2014, board members went by and said, well, those lights aren't even on. And yes, in fact, they were on in the parking lot. They are a very inconspicuous light, but add a lot to that parking lot. Taking the pole sign down adds a ton of light in that parking lot as well. So we're going to take that pole sign down. We really can't afford to lose any more light than we are going to lose when the pole sign goes down. You know, and I guess I would point to the municipal parking lot across the street behind the grill, which lights up a city block in 4 different directions. And we talk about spillage of light. That might be something that we want to address in the city before we go to my 2 small little head pole lights.
Okay, and that would have to be noted on the site plan, what your changes are that you're planning, and then the building department could inspect and approve the fixtures.
Okay. You know the fixtures, Jim? I mean, is there, you
Yeah,
see
they're
a
about
huge problem?
15-foot tall poles with little box lights that go
Little
straight
box
down.
lights, yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them, so.
Okay. And you see any problems with those? And these are I mean, this is my major concern of the whole thing.
You're requesting to keep the lights. I believe we have in the area, we have the Cobra lights for the street and our street lighting in the area. I think at 2014, they were saying they were unnecessary. And you guys made an argument saying that they were necessary for your parking lot. And it's still your stance that they're necessary for the parking lot.
There's no question, and I would invite anyone to come into the parking lot. We'll shut those lights off, and you tell me you'd be happy to have your daughter carrying her laundry out to the far end of my parking lot.
I think that
And
was.
you wouldn't.
That was a consensus of discussion that we had, was a safety in the parking lot of any patrons at
And
that
come,
time, too.
come 9:30, I'm the only one open in the strip. So I'm only open till 10 o'clock, but I'm the only one open in the strip. So there's no light spilling out of any of the other adjacent properties either. So
Do those lights go off after you leave?
those lights are on all night. We do have them on a timer. They go off they come on at dusk and go off at dawn.
Would you be opposed to setting the timer for a time that's closer to your close?
I wouldn't, except that I can tell you that during this process, about 6 months ago, 8 months ago, the lights in the back were disabled for a short period of time, and somebody tried to draw out the lock in the back of my building. So I think that there is a criminal element that exists. I mean, those lights were out for 3 days, and one of my locks was almost drilled out. So
That was in the back
I
of
would
the
be
building, though?
concerned about that.
I saw it in the paper, and I love your television ads, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Well done.
So I would be concerned about that. There's been a lot of graffiti on the walls back there, dumpster. There seems to be, and I think that that's subsided recently, but I know that there is an element that runs through that area. I have cameras out there too to just kind of prevent that type of thing, but that doesn't seem to matter.
If the board wants, I'll drive by it tonight after the meeting and see if I find it intrusive or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah, I would say that the incandescent bulb outside the Dario probably sheds more light into the neighborhood than I do.
Yeah, you're probably right about that.
You know,
So, getting back to the pole sign, I think we were talking about just timing as far as what you expect to have that break down, and that'll be in conjunction as far as when you need to have your sign up, right?
I certainly would hope so. I mean, I've been sitting on a design and you know, tough to present a design and an idea when we can't decide on what the front's going to look like. So,
I don't think
you
there's
know,
any.
and I don't know, has anybody seen, have you guys
Yeah,
got
we
this?
have
in your
it, and I don't think
packet?
there's any concern around the design of your
You've got
sign.
this, 30
Yeah,
square
that's
feet
not the
is
issue.
acceptable?
I mean, I don't want to speak on the size of it, but I think the
Okay.
design is in keeping with the other ones. That if there's any concern from us, I think it would be through pure balance of sign because
not
it
a
doesn't
box
match your
sign.
signs.
Right.
Because yours are the nicer looking signs, we think.
Okay.
But, you know, and we understand your concern around the timeline. There's just not a whole lot we can do without receiving a fully executed site plan at this point.
But
So as
what
soon as
you
we
won't-
get that, I think we can move much more quickly.
Right, but what you won't have a problem with is the pole sign coming down before you have your other sign up. Can we all agree that we can work within those parameters? We have the capability of saying, don't take the pole sign down until all the signs are complete in the building. That way you don't have to worry about having a period where you're not being properly represented as a business.
That would be fabulous.
I think we can
I would
work.
agree with that.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with
And what we're doing now is offering temporary banner signs, right, to fill in the void, if there is a void. That's what we have done.
I mean, he's
got a temporary banner.
You've got to work with the owners as far as taking the sign
Temporary
down and
banner sign
having
that
their
isn't lit
signs
up,
up.
that isn't, you
I mean,
can't see from the street,
Right.
that, I mean, it has no
I
relevance.
would just say that the one thing we can do for them is we can say, pole sign doesn't come down till you have a full sign up there. Within, we can set a parameter.
Who's on the
timeframe.
pole sign right now? You are, who else is on there?
I think the word antiques is on there.
And that's
Pure
it?
Balance is on there.
Okay, I mean, so that not everybody's represented on that sign, right? So it's benefits them to understand what they need to do in order to present their ideas for their sign so that we could have an opinion whether or not it's acceptable or not, right? But you shouldn't be beholden to taking that pole sign down on whether they get their sign design together. All right, So, I mean,
Now, let me ask this question. When we're talking about signs, so is the massage therapy, is that the only sign that Mr. Mahmood needs to go and get them to come in front of us? Are we fine with the rest of the signs, or can we say that now? Because to try and get all of those people together may be a difficult task. I don't know if it will or won't be. But
same situation we just faced, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, as far as what's acceptable, I think we've agreed, stop me if I'm speaking out of turn, but box signs are not acceptable, right? It's not, as far as for what we're trying to achieve for the signs on the previous building and on this building, right?
so when you say box sites, are we talking about Pure Balance? Is that the only one we're talking about, though?
Is that the only one?
I don't know, the way I'm thinking about the one that we just approved, I mean, box signs would be fine if they were all box signs and we thought that they were compatible with the architecture of the building. So we agreed with the 14-mile property that as long as they were all channel letters on a raceway, they could be whatever color, whatever style, whatever font, whatever it needed to be, but it all needed to be a similar style or similarly attached to the building and, not channel letters here and a big box sign lit up next to it. So right now, looking at this, what I look at is, 3 of them are channel, well, our collective is just kind of a circle, but that is their logo, so that would be something to discuss as well. But the others are channel letters, and then Pure Balance is a form of a box sign, so it does stand out as being different.
So then what we're saying is Pure Balance is the one that he needs to have come in front of us, correct? We don't need to have the people from Antique or our collective come in.
If the proposal is channel letters on a raceway, which we don't have documented anywhere.
Not on
Yeah, that would need to be added to
Okay,
the.
so
added to the site
if
plan.
he could document that on his site plan, then those 3 sites, including Liquor Palace, Laundry Palace, don't need to come in front of us, what's on my mind. Just
Conforming to
the
the site
massage
plan.
place, correct?
Well,
that would
I
be
would
the-
also
Well-
want to get some clarification that the antique sign is not too many square feet for the frontage that they have.
Right, so once they set the rules for what signs look like, just like we
Once
just
Mr.
did.
Mahmood sets the rules,
Right, and you approve it on the site plan.
right?
Then no one has to come back in front of you. They just come get their permit, and if their permit application complies with those standards, channel letters on a raceway, if that's what it is, that's what we just approved.
So does that make it any easier for you in regards to working with signs? If you know what you have right now, and we are kind of giving you guidance and saying that right now, we don't see Pure Balance sitting in the same conformity that the others are, but you have 3 that are sitting properly in that way, I would hope that that would make it easier for you to talk to your people, okay?
So it's your contention that our collective is a form of a channel letter, and you're okay with the our collective?
And I agree with,
okay with it.
Because,
But on the site plan, we need to understand whether that it complies or not, right?
Well, and as
From the looks of
Ann
it-
mentioned, as Ann mentioned, it's listed 30 square feet, and you fall within the parameters on that. From a dimensional standpoint, that's outlined in this line 5 that we got. As far as Pure Balance, would there be, input as far as taking that whole section in the upper right-hand corner above the balance and over to the, I'll say the emblem, and taking that out? That would reduce the square footage of that sign, and it would kind of do a little offset where it wouldn't be a square sign, but it would be a step sign. In other words, taking this whole area right out like that.
I'm not a fan of that.
No, yeah, it's still,
I'm
I
not
think
really
it still
seeing that
needs
as
to be the
a
same type
working
of sign.
solution.
That's what I was kind of looking at.
So the
Well,
That's what
and-
you're saying,
and-
I just don't see it as a working solution.
Then I say, okay, my sign is approximately $5,500 or $6,000. You say my sign's okay, now our other people have to go out and match the sign that I've got. Our collective's already spent $4,000 or $5,000 on their sign, and now all of a sudden it doesn't comply anymore. Or now we gotta do what our collective does, because that's what you say that you want it to look like. And I've gotta go and spend different money in different designs in order to conform to what it is that you.
Well, that's not necessarily what we're saying. if Mr. Mahmood comes back to us and says, here's my site plan, and here's what we have is conformity for those signs, yours falls into that area, so does our collective, so does the antique place. No, unfortunately, Pure Balance doesn't. Do they necessarily have to spend $6,000 for a new sign? No, we're not saying that. But we're saying that there's got to be some level of uniformity on those signs. And that's the only one that doesn't fit into it. So no, your sign isn't going to force our collective to do a new sign, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we're all saying that if he comes back with certain parameters, that one fits into a certain type of sign structure. So we'd only be talking about Pure Balance. Am I stating this correctly? Does everyone agree with what I'm saying?
I do, yeah.
That seems to be the general discussion of that, too. As far as the signage goes, that's the only one in question. That's why.
We want Pure Balance to come back with some sort of channel letter design.
New drawing or?
No, we want you to
No,
come
we
back.
want you.
We want you to come
A standard.
with a standard for the building, for the site, for the whole site, a standard for the signs, which I'm a little confused, because shouldn't that have been on there from the beginning?
Well, that's now required information for a downtown.
So does that make sense to you, Mr. Mahmood?
Sure.
And then once you do that, yeah, chances are you're going to set some type of conformity that they probably won't fit into. That's what we're saying. And then at that point, we will have to, I don't know what we do at that point. We reach out to Pure Balance and let them know. I'm just pulling that. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure.
Does this change your sign at all? You know, the.
I don't
what
know
we're
that.
discussing?
I mean, he's going to have to tell us what our signs are going to have to look like then,
I
I
just didn't know,
guess.
based off our feedback, if you know of the type of sign, because I see the dimensions on your sign and I see the
Yeah.
design, but I can't tell
No,
what
it's
it is.
channel letters.
Okay. All right,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
And isn't there another tenant going in there that needs to be putting up a sign soon?
No, that's not our building.
Okay. Gotcha. Oh, that's separate from that. Okay.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion if someone would
Thank
like to
you.
make one.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
for your feedback.
Thank you.
When do you think you can be back? How much time do you think you need?
Because keep in mind, we're not asking you to actually go back to the businesses and have them
Sure.
redesign right now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only issue is gonna be the rooftop screening and working that out. That's probably gonna be the biggest. I mean, the rest of this, we can march with, shouldn't be a problem. The rooftop screening is gonna be the only issue, because once we make that determination, obviously, we're gonna have to run with it. So I would rather, err on the side of caution with that, rather than try to push it through quickly. 45
Your
days,
architect
30
is certified to design a 2-foot parapet wall
Well, I mean,
mounted to the
that's
roof
your-
of the building.
That's your opinion, but I mean, obviously, we'd like to make sure that we get another opinion on it too. I mean, we're not gonna go with just one person's design or what one engineer says, so. I mean, at the same time, we wanna make sure that it's safe.
Are we going to allow administration to sign off on the design of the screen, or we have to?
I think we need to see it,
We have to see it again?
yeah. I mean, as far as we've already had a picket fence situation, right, or whatever was up there.
Lattice.
Sorry, lattice. Do you think you could have more than one design proposal in 45 days that we could review?
More than one?
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were suggesting, right?
Well, no, having it reviewed by more than one individual, but probably one design.
Oh, could you speak into the microphone, please?
I don't know.
No, we would have,
No, I
we'd
think
have
that's what he
one,
was asking.
Yeah, I don't know that we need to look
Can
at
you get your
several
multiples and then
designs,
break it down
do we?
into one
Well, what's-
within 45 days?
sure. I mean, as long as we can work with Jim to meet whatever timeline requirement you have.
Jim
It
can
shouldn't be an
follow the
issue.
structure of it, and we can look at the aesthetics of it. That's pretty much where I think we're going to end up.
Your design professional's going to design it and also stamp it with making sure it meets the building code. so.
Okay, all right.
Okay, sounds good.
So
Okay,
45 days.
everything's good, so we will.
45 days. So you think that 45 days?
Let's do a motion, and it's up to Mr. Mahmood when he comes back. If he could make it in 2 weeks, you're more than welcome to stop back in 2 weeks and try it again.
Okay,
But
Fair enough.
if that doesn't take, then our next meeting.
So we have to have a deadline, though.
You have to have some sort of a buy.
Yeah, I think you should, given that they're not in compliance with their site plan now, I think you should set a deadline for reasons.
Because he still has to
Deadline.
provide the details for a site plan,
If-
right?
Yeah, if you would like to see him back here before you in February, I mean, we could certainly shoot for the 27th, right? Because that would give him 3 weeks, all of next week. He'd have to submit by the 15th, I think, and that would give staff at least a week to review and get it in your packets. So for the 27th, so I would say submit by the 15th.
So in 2 meetings.
Is that doable?
Yes.
Is that possible?
I mean, that's 3 weeks for him to get with his professionals and do what he needs to do.
I think that's ambitious from our perspective.
But he's had these things in front of him, the same issues.
And I would like to get it cleared up too. But I mean, as far as, I want to make sure it's right, right? I mean, I'm tired of having it constantly go back and forth, but we need to have it buttoned up. There's no question about that. So, I don't know, first meeting in March, is it?
Yep, I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with
If you want him to meet in the first meeting in March, then that's March 13th.
Okay.
as a deadline.
And so you have to submit by March 1st,
So that gives.
by noon.
Doable.
March 1st by
March
noon.
13th.
All right.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we move the site plan review to the first meeting in March 13th, 2018.
Support?
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Casera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture? Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton?
Yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Agenda item number 6 is consideration of a TCO for 1068 West 14 Mile Road, which is the Noble Appliance.
So this is a site that has a few things left to do before they'll be in compliance with the site plan in terms of their exterior improvements. They also have some things that the building official and the fire marshal need them to do as well, and some other conditions to still comply with. They have submitted, so in essence, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the one out at the site, but they have not yet striped the parking lot. They've made repairs to the parking lot. They've not yet striped it. They've not yet installed the bench that you required out along the sidewalk in front, and they have not yet installed the landscaping for the site. So I got estimates from the owner for those things. They total about $5,000 for those items. The striping seemed to just be the paint, so I'm not sure if that was all of the striping estimate or not. Then the lot split, which was a condition of approval, is in the works. It'll be going to council at their next meeting, but that will be next month. So I don't think we need to hold them up for that. They've done their part in terms of submitting the required documentation now. There are some things that building department and fire marshal will want probably accomplished before they actually issue a temporary certificate of occupancy. So what you're doing is you're authorizing a temporary certificate of occupancy, subject to submitting security in that amount until, the end of May, when it's warm enough to complete those items.
The security would be $5,000 in your estimation?
I don't have the exact estimates with me, but it's approximately 5,000. It's slightly below $5,000.
Okay.
So
Is that sufficient to complete?
I
the-
might bump that up by 50% to $7,500.
And you're recommending giving a TCO for how long of a time?
I would say through May 31st.
Through May, just,
These are weather-sensitive items.
right.
That's the same deadline that you've given the past TCOs at the last, I think, 2 meetings. So
Now, the report I just gave you at the beginning of this meeting with the 6 fire issues and 1 building repair issue, the applicants said they've already taken care of those. The inspection was done last Thursday, but I actually compiled this report today. So this is the first they're seeing it too. But they had already talked to me and said they were resolving the issues. So if you issue the temporary C of O before they have occupancy, I'll make sure all the fire safety items are resolved.
Apropos of nothing, what's a Knox box?
A Knox box is a box on the outside of the building that has keys to enter the building. The Knox is a company, and so the key on the fire truck or in the police car all match those boxes, so we can access their building at any time.
I have been educated, thank you.
That Knox box is an option, though, correct? It's not a mandatory.
No.
Yeah, I listed it as a Clawson suggestion. I don't know if on their original site plan they agreed to it or not, so.
Yeah.
It wasn't so much that it was agreed to, but the way to get a knock box is you order it and your fire chief approves of it, because he gets an email of it, which we already have his approval, so therefore they will in turn key it to Clawson's area, and then we attach it to the building. But that process is done, and your fire chief has already approved that.
Dave, did you get that, or does he have to talk into a microphone? He's good, okay.
Can hear you.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Motion?
Okay. I'll make a motion to authorize a temporary certificate of occupancy, subject to submitting security in the amount of $7,500 to the city of Clawson for completion of the items as noted in the certificate of occupancy letter from Mr. Alvis, thank you. With completion no later than May 31st, 2018.
Support?
Any additions, changes?
No.
Those are good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Kacera? Yes. Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
How are your windows coming, by the way?
They're bare.
There? Some backside of the racks, I think, are showing now.
Yeah, that's it. But there's no appliances in there.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is consideration of a TCO for 1119 West Maple Road, which is Osaka.
If he's willing, I'm going to defer to Jim on this one, as he discussed this with the project architect earlier today.
On December 18th, I did an inspection, exterior only, of the site, and had multiple items: construction debris on the site, banner on the site, grease dumpster behind the building, broken concrete slabs on private sidewalk, roof drains discharging across the private sidewalk, exterior wall-mounted lights not installed per site plan approval. Barrier-free elements of the site do not comply with the approved site plan approval. Barrier-free elements do not comply with ADA requirements. Dimpled pads, truncated domes, handicap parking signs too low, handicap ramp altered, greater than 112 slope. Landscaping does not comply with the approved landscape designs. Plumbing, vacuum breaker not installed on exterior hose bib. They have completed quite a few of these items. There's a discrepancy with the landscaping. The architect has done a landscape count. I believe I brought it to your attention that I didn't believe the trees were in the right places. There's also a paved area leading up to their back loading dock that was designed to be landscaping. The count of the plants that he's come up with, he says complies with the site plan. With that change with the loading ramp, I said there was a difference. We came to a conclusion today that the difference in cost of the landscaping would be about $2,000 for that.
Additional?
If you were going to put up a bond for the TCO. We also discussed the ADA requirements. There was the approved site plan where we asked for a walkway from the public sidewalk to the front driving area. And then there was, on the engineering plans, handicap ramps put on that. And with altering the roof drains, they had to cut through an existing handicap ramp. And to work out the details of that and get those corrected, we ballparked I had talked to the architect, and we ballparked that'd be about $2,000 worth of concrete repairs. Also, it was brought to my attention that if we approve something that does not meet Michigan State barrier-free designs or issue a temporary C of O and/or American Disabilities Act, that the city should get like an indemnity clause from the business owner that during the temporary C of O, that the city would not be held liable for any accidents or claims against the property. I just brought that to the applicant's attention tonight, see if they agree to that. And then there's another $500 that I had on here. Barrier-free landscaping. And then completion of the broken concrete slabs. He didn't find any. We were dealing with this when the snow was on site. I had seen a couple. It might have been resolved when they took the roof drains draining across the sidewalks and busted out those slabs. So I just threw an extra $500 on that. So I came up with if you were willing to issue a temporary C of O to the end of May, like the rest of them, that $4,500 would be acceptable. Also, they have to ask permission to keep the paved area going up to their back loading dock that was on the original site plan. That was a landscaped area. I don't know if you guys would request a new set of plans showing that paved area or deny the paved area. So that would be something that the applicant is here to speak on it. I negotiated with his architect earlier in the day, and then I told him about the indemnity clause for to protect the city in case of a lawsuit.
I just want to make sure that there's also concrete supposed to be from the public sidewalk to the front entrance?
It's poured, but the ramp that's on the engineering drawings as opposed to the site, there's supposed to be a handicap ramp to that parking lane, and then there's supposed to be another handicap ramp on that drawing, or installed on that drawing, but that leads to 2 steps.
Okay.
The actual handicap ramp is around the side by the handicap parking spots. And then once you're inside the building, they have an elevator lift to get you up to the service areas.
Are you making any recommendations on that, suggestions on how we should handle that? Because if it's, that would be different than the site plan, correct?
Well, the site plan doesn't show the handicap ramps on it.
Oh, it doesn't,
But the
okay.
engineering plan does.
Okay.
I would, since we have $4,500 in bond money to resolve those issues.
Okay.
I'm not too worried about resolving those issues. There is a
That part of
difference between Michigan State barrier-free design
Okay.
And they actually went through this process under the Michigan Rehab Code as opposed to the American Disabilities Act, which is a federal code.
Okay.
So we're trying to protect them all the way to the American Disabilities Act, but I can only enforce up to the Michigan State Barrier Free Act. So it's close, but
Okay.
that's what, I got to work out the details, so.
Is that part of the 2,000 that you were talking about for the concrete repairs? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, great, thank you.
And are you saying that that paved area, or that area had to be paved to accommodate this, the handicap, the compliance? Or are you saying that was just an unfortunate, didn't match the?
It was a mistake by their architect, and then the developers of the site realized that it was a loading dock with a swinging gate, so they could actually back up box trucks to it, so they can just load right into the building.
And are you saying there's an alternative proposal to put in whatever plants or type thing that should have been
Our
there
approved
somewhere
site
else?
plan shows landscaping back there, and they paved an area basically so the box trucks can back up.
But they haven't proposed to replace.
I know what you're asking, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
That's
Say
what,
it
they
again.
have, so have they made a proposal to say, well, oops, but we'll go ahead and put it over here?
Right.
We'll put
No,
some
it was just,
landscaping here.
discussion's just starting on that right now, so that's what, they're here, and I'm sure they'll address it.
Is there someone from Osaka here that wishes to speak to us?
Can I ask one more question? Did you, and you guys can come up.
you can.
The 2,000 that you set aside for landscaping bond then, is that just for the landscaping that was already approved, not assuming that they're going to do anything with the landscaping portion in the back that
They have,
paved over?
they have most of the landscaping installed.
Okay.
But I, obviously, with this loading dock area,
Okay.
it's not in the places that I was expecting it.
Yep.
And he's saying the tree counts and the bush counts are the same, so that's what, I put $2,000 in just
Okay.
because what I saw out there and what he counted out there are two different things.
Right.
'Cause obviously, when I saw a paved area, when there was supposed to be a landscaped area, it brought up
Sure.
my attention. I think I even brought it up to the board about a month ago.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much.
Can we get your names and your position as to this?
Peter Hahn, President of Osaka.
Okay.
Joe Novitsky, architect, they'll take responsibility for the screw-up on the loading dock. I didn't know that that gate opened up. It's a raised floor system there. They're probably 40 inches above grade. And so it was a perfect loading dock. I didn't see it when I was, when we were canvassing the building and putting the documents together. When we were here before you for site plan approval, two things. The sidewalk leading from the main sidewalk on 15 Mile that we put across the entirety of it was requested to go up to the building. We put the sidewalk on our site plan, all is well and fine, and then the engineer put a ramp down to the drive lane, which is 150 feet from the barrier-free ramp to get up to the building. You'd have to redesign the entire building entry, which is an extensively elaborate deal to do.
Right.
I think it's unsafe to put that one more ramp in. We're encouraging traffic, wheeled traffic, handicap traffic into an untenable position. It's unsafe. So we can talk about it. If we insist on it because of the way the law is interpreted, we'll put it in. But I want to talk about it honestly up front.
Can I pause you right there? Because
Yeah.
that's a great point, and I just want to, Jim, your status or your point on that was that if they're going to keep that, then we need to put some sort of addendum clause in the
Indemnity?
indemnity clause inside. Is this the portion you're discussing about that?
No, this is the, he's talking about the handicap, well, the paved area to the loading dock has to be, either he has to submit a new set of plans, so we have an actual as-built for the site, and you guys accept that. But the handicap ramps is obviously going to be discussion with myself, the engineer, him.
Okay.
And probably our attorney,
Legal.
making sure that I
Legal.
don't
Yep.
bend any laws
Yeah.
more than I should.
So are you saying, though, that there are some options to make everything compliant and meet what needs to be met? That would avoid having to redo some expensive exterior or front work, but we just haven't found that yet? Or what are you saying?
Well, where we're requiring, where the engineering plans requires the two barrier-free ramps leads to two steps, and it's
Yeah.
But they had an existing ramp that we were accepting under Michigan State barrier-free designs under the rehab code that's off to the side. So it's, we're going to have to definitely look into the laws and see. I think it can work with the side one, but there's two steps up there that they can't really remove because that's the only
So you're
entrance.
saying along with the mistake with the loading dock, that is something that needs to be revised on the site plan as you find a solution?
It's not on the site plan,
At
it's
all?
on the engineering
On the
plan
engineering.
after the site plan.
Okay.
We just said put it in a walkway there.
Okay.
And so my understanding then is that we're not actually doing anything with that here on this
Right,
board.
that's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, but we wanted the board to be aware of the issues with the handicap and ADA requirements.
It causes me a concern to give you a temporary certificate of occupancy because it's, our SCUPL requirement specifies specific features and actions of the Planning Commission or Zoning Board of Appeals considers necessary to protect natural resources or the health, safety, or welfare of residents, project users, or the general public. I'm leery of opening up a business where there's obviously a problem going on here with the handicap accessibility and liabilities towards you and towards us as a city.
Well, I think I'm the first named in that suit. May I address that directly?
Certainly, certainly.
This ramp has been there for, I'm going to say 40 years, maybe 50. It, for all intent and purpose, has been radically improved. The roof drains, at one time, there's a 5-foot sidewalk between the building and the parking areas. And when we first came before you, it became a problem in the winter because the water would trickle across the sidewalks and build up ice. So when we came before you, what our intent was just to cut the sidewalks, drain out to the parking lot, and not take that whole parking lot out and redo the entire parking lot. They have done that. When they did that, we cut these sidewalks and put all that water underground into a contained system. We have radically improved the use of that existing ramp without changing or altering any of the slopes. It met ADA compliance at one time.
At one time, yes.
It's under the rehab code that meets the intent and spirit of the code. There have been no, to my knowledge, no accidents. It doesn't look unsafe from my professional perspective. I have no reservation in talking about that out loud with anybody, attorneys or anybody else that's in charge of these issues, health, safety, and welfare, which we are. And the ramp, I believe, that was put on the plan from the engineer without my knowledge, that's not on our site plan, approved site plan by you, is pulling people into a drive lane, which I think is unsafe. Health, safety, and welfare. I would not encourage that cross-traffic on any level, on any time. So we need to come to some resolution here. I'm not afraid that we can. I know we can.
Yes.
And I could have a submission tomorrow with the same plant count, replacing the 4 bushes that we took out to make this, I have photographs of it, to access their loading dock. We could replace those in the spring when we find out what survived this severe winter.
Yeah, the plantings and the concrete workers, we can ask you for money for that, and that doesn't bother me as much as the liability of an accident happening on the site.
It's improved from what it has been.
I'm sure it has, yeah.
It's radically improved. So we're hoping that you can help us get things going here and let him move forward. It's been a long haul, and I think if anybody's visited there, they've made such a beautiful improvement to this city. I'm impressed with his mother's artwork.
That's awesome.
It is. It's just awesome.
Thank you. Mr. Kingsep, want to inject something here?
This young man may be the first one served in the litigation. I can assure you we'll be the second.
We're the second.
And what I want to do, this is the first time I've heard about this issue tonight, and I'm always conscious of our potential liability. So I appreciate the proffer to get together, because I think this does need a very intense discussion and some resolution. I can only urge that I'll be available in the next 2 weeks, so we can have that discussion, so you're not unduly delayed, and we can get this done. We'll do our best effort to resolve it. And if I have to get some form of indemnification, well, I'll get it from their mother and so forth, so we're sufficiently covered.
Right.
But we'll come back and give you the script afterwards.
Okay.
So you're saying you're comfortable with the TCO because you're going to work with them? You're saying you're comfortable this should not stop us from issuing a TCO?
No, I'm comfortable in saying that we'll work on this and just wait 2 weeks.
Hold off the TCO for 2
Hold
weeks.
off 2 weeks.
That's why I'm asking.
I'm sorry, I should
I
have
wanted to
been
make sure I was clear, that's why.
Well,
Did you
I
get
got
that
so
out of that?
excited I was
Well,
speaking tonight. that
I was like,
so-
the TCO indemnity, wait a second,
Right.
you know? Okay.
Does anybody else from the staff have any opinions on that? I'd like to hear.
There you go. Which is fine by you?
Right.
Oh, okay.
Motion it.
So,
Hold on. I want to hear, do you have any opinion on this, Greg?
Well, my only opinion is that the way you evaluate whether or not a site is ready for a TCO is have they completed the things that were on the site plan?
Right.
Right? And to the degree these things weren't on the site plan, I don't know if it's fair to at this point say, well, now that should hold you up from occupancy.
Okay.
You know, I have not gone deep into this issue, however. You know, I didn't inspect the site. I don't know exactly what's there and what's not there. You know, Jim's the one who did that, so I certainly defer to him in terms of his opinion about whether or not it's consistent with what you would have expected to see when you approved the site plan and what he expected to see when he issued the building permit.
Well, actually, we haven't answered the question I had earlier, which is, we understand that there was a mistake, stuff happens with the loading dock and that area with landscaping, but I still haven't had my question answered. Is there potential to put landscaping in somewhere else to replace that, which obviously might end up needing an amended site plan, but that's
Yes.
yes, okay, so we do have an option to address that oversight with additional landscaping in a different place. But it should end up showing up on a site plan amendment or something?
Yeah,
Or
no,
revised, yeah.
As far as that, those improvements that were not on the site plan, then, you know, they should bond for rectifying that if you don't approve it. You know, don't
And that's
approve
what
the
Jim was
alternative.
suggesting with his set of numbers.
Correct.
That was
Correct.
included in that, okay.
so my understanding would be that we hold off on granting the TCO.
Didn't he just,
For
Greg
2
said
weeks.
we should give the TCO? I heard two different.
No,
Oh.
postpone it.
Oh, okay.
We
They'll
postponed
get
it.
it done in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think I heard Greg say we can approve it.
That's
and
what I thought I heard.
And I heard another person say we can't, that
I'm
we
hearing two
shouldn't.
different things.
And I'm looking for, I think we're looking for clarity on
My
that.
opinion, what I
I'm just
hear.
talking about what the standard is.
Yes.
And our attorney, yeah.
Yeah, I-
And our attorney.
All I'm saying is, somebody thought they were saying the same thing, and I don't think they were.
Yep.
Where's the risk, right? That's what I'm looking at.
If
The
we-
greater risk is that we do it now and then something
Right.
happens,
If we
so
can hold it off for 2 weeks, I'd
If
sleep.
they're not
I
upset
know.
about it, and
can you do it in 2 weeks, right? I thought you already said that, yeah.
Okay.
Great.
We have a motion to that effect?
So our next meeting is when?
2 weeks.
It's
February
It's like
13th.
2 weeks.
February 13th. Got
February
those dates right in
13th.
front of us.
13th, okay.
Same time, same bat channel.
Exactly. Okay, so I'll make a motion that we postpone the review of, what's the address?
The approval.
19.
1119 West Maple Road until our next regularly scheduled planned, or planning commission meeting on February 13th, 2018.
Wait, what are we postponing? You didn't-
We're postponing the
TCO.
the TCO, I'm sorry.
Support.
Motion, I have support. Roll call, please.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse? Yes. Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Fenton?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
On a roll tonight. Item number 8, consideration of a TCO extension for 246 West 14 Mile Road, which is Fantastic Sam's. I looked in my papers and my notes, and I think we issued a 60-day permit issued on November the 28th. So
You authorized that on November 28th. It actually got issued for only 30 days because that's what they asked for. But it's since expired, obviously, and even if it were to be renewed for the remaining 60 days, it would expire before your next planning commission meeting. So We put it on the agenda to address the fact that it's expiring. I communicated with the property owner in advance of the meeting. I understand he is out of town on vacation now. He was not at the point where I was communicating with him. And I said, I think there are two things that would need to be bonded for in terms of work external work that needs to happen on the site per the now approved site plan. There's 3 trees out in front that are to be planted, even if the city's agreeing to plant one of those. There's 2 trees out in front that need to be planted. That's a relatively minor issue. The more significant issue is the reconstruction of the pole sign in accordance with the variance that they were granted. And I asked him to provide me with an estimate of what the cost of that would be, and his answer was no. So in light of that, I asked, what I would suggest. I don't think we want to necessarily punish Fantastic Sam's, and so I think we can deal with this item if Jim has an opinion of what a reasonable amount to guarantee the reconstruction of that pole sign might be. We had one similar right next door last year. I guess it was last year at the mobile station that got reconstructed in sort of a similar fashion.
Per his request, if I recall correctly, as far as relocating the dumpster, right?
Well, I'm talking about the pole sign. Anyway, what I would suggest you do with this tonight, so as not to punish the occupant, the tenant, is set an amount that you think would be reasonable for security, if and when that security is provided, then authorize a TCO through the end of May, as we've been doing for all weather-related items with everybody that comes before us here this winter.
Okay, I've followed some of the emails back and forth between city and Mr. Bond, or Band, rather. And I don't know, I saw one of the notes that you sent, it says that security for the incomplete site work will need to be posted before the TCO can be extended. I'm not sure that's factual, if that's in our realm. And there is a development agreement signed between he and the city of Clawson to do these items.
No, what it says is that he has to come before you and get a temporary certificate of occupancy in the usual course. And the reason we entered into the development agreement was to allow Fantastic Sam's to get in there before any of this happened.
Right.
And normally that would not happen. Normally they don't get in there before there's a site plan approved. And then you bond for the items that are incomplete per the site plan approval. We bent over backwards to get Fantastic Sam's in there, had a development agreement signed that would authorize that procedure, but it was with the full expectation that he would follow the usual procedures beyond that point. Number one, go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, seek a variance. If he didn't get it, take the sign down. He got it, so now he needs to reconstruct the sign. Number two, come before the Planning Commission, seek site plan approval. He did that, he got it. It's conditioned upon reconstructing the sign and putting 3 street trees out in front. The temporary CO was issued for 60 days back when, because we understood all those things were going to happen within those 60 days. They did happen within those 60 days. Now is the time that we're supposed to get security for the incomplete items, and then when the weather permits, he can do them.
This seems pretty straightforward.
And I understand asking for a security bond on this, but from my perspective, that would be before we approve his site plan. He knows he's not going to get a site plan approved.
We already approved the site plan.
At the last meeting.
With stipulations.
Just the 3 trees.
And the
And the sign.
reconstructed
Well,
sign.
yeah, and the sign. Yeah.
3 trees and the sign comes down. Okay, so
Well, no, he's got to
the sign has to be redone.
redo the sign.
you're telling me we approved this and we didn't ask for security. Now we want to ask for security, and if he doesn't give it to us, we're going to...
Yeah, just like all these others. We don't get security when the site plan's approved. We get security when a TCO is requested. So now's the time that the TC, and we had this discussion when he was here. He said, you know, you're gonna have to come back here to get Fantastic Sam's extended.
So
It was
we should have
issued
asked.
for only 60 days.
So we should have asked for security at that point in time?
Well, no, the reason
can't.
we didn't do it when we first gave it to them was because we hadn't approved a site plan. We didn't know what we were getting security for. Now we've approved the site plan, now we know what he needs to bond for.
Okay.
Because he's requesting a TCO. If he didn't request a TCO, we wouldn't need a bond in the first place, because he'd have his own, he's, you know,
He'd be
just
in
like Blue
compliance
Moon,
and
right?
he'd be
They have a
within.
nice site plan, we couldn't
Had
do
their
anything with it.
site plan
He,
approved.
he has another vacant spot in this structure, and he's not allowed to rent that out, correct?
Not right now,
Not until the site plan's approved.
not until he's either bonded or
And
completed the site improvements.
Right.
so your feeling is that we should ask for security on this rather than extend the
That-
TCO?
That's how we treat everybody else. That's how we just treated them and the people that were here before them.
And if we do not extend the TCO, then what happens? Then Mr. Elvis goes in and closes them?
Potentially.
See,
When does he get back from vacation?
I hate to see that happen. He's in Biloxi, Mississippi. He'll be back Thursday.
So, I mean, if you set the amount, then it's a solvable problem.
Right.
And he can bring it in, and he'll get his extension. I doubt that Jim's gonna rush out there and start ticketing Fantastic Sam's in the meantime.
Right. I hope not.
They are aware that this could potentially happen?
I'm sure they're listening
Fantastic
to
Sam's?
stories. Do we have any kind of a?
That's
dollar-
not our obligation, that's the property owners.
Do we have any kind of dollar figure in mind that we would ask for? To remove the sign and to put the trees in?
Well, it'd be to alter the sign, and whether the trees are approximately $500 each.
Okay, so that's 15.
Well, are we
I
talking?
was just shocked with $5,000 for a channel letter sign. When Gary from Laundry Palace said his was $5,000.
It's 6,000.
I really don't know the cost of altering an existing pole sign.
Yeah, because it's going to be trimmed up,
You gotta
cut
get a
down.
crane
lowered.
out there, torch it off, cut it down to the right size, and then alter the sign. So it's going to be, if his wall sign was $6,000, it's probably gonna be at least that, probably more, because you got a crane on it.
But it's still a bond that I mean, at 10,000, if we don't know the number, I'd rather, I guess, we still have $10,000 of his, so he has to do something, right? Even if it's not that amount, it's still advantageous for him to complete this
We
work,
don't
or he's
have
out
any-
10,000.
We don't have any money at this point.
I know, but what I'm suggesting is
requesting it.
if we say 10,000, and it's really 13 or 14, he still doesn't want to be out the 10,000 by not
Right.
doing this.
He's motivated to do it.
I'm hesitant to go double that, just because we don't know what the cost is, and I don't want that burden on the owner either.
I think 10,000 is a realistic amount, and be prepared for a prolonged discussion when he returns.
Okay.
Which is consistent. So he'll probably argue against the need to have any at all. So be sure when he does come back that you're satisfied that you have a rational basis and the amount is realistic for him to post.
So
That's the
That
tough
would,
part.
that would prevent him from renting out the empty vacancy that he has, but what's going to go on with Sam's? That's my concern. I mean, they're not going to.
Well, Sam's will get, at the point where he posts the securities, they'll get an extension.
Yep.
If he doesn't, they won't.
So what you're saying is we're approving a temporary certificate of occupancy contingent upon him doing
Yes,
this?
just like we've done here.
Extension of, contingent
You're
upon,
authorizing Jim to issue it, assuming all of the building code issues are resolved, at the point where he posts security in the amount of $10,000, and that term would be through the end of May.
And it's either a cash deposit or a bond satisfactory to counsel for the city.
okay.
Yeah, I know, thanks.
So what happens to Fantastic Sam's in the meantime?
They stay open.
Nothing unless Jim.
I just want to make that perfectly
Jim's got a-
clear.
he's
It
got an
depends
appointment
how
tomorrow
you
at
define
7.
meantime, I guess, but assuming all proceeds in good order, nothing.
But here's the reality, though, guys. Like that's part of owning businesses and having landlords and all that stuff. So they've it's not our responsibility as a city to make up for the deficiencies of a landlord and how they do their business.
But we are in the position in the right order right now. We approved the site plan. This is the time that we would
Yes.
do the bond, so we can go ahead and do that, and we can
Exactly.
have that battle.
Exactly.
We're in the appropriate time frame.
I think we're doing what we need to do in
At
this
this
scenario,
time.
as per what they're proposing seems fair.
And we're continuing to reach out to the property owner as far as what he should be doing, right?
Well, he's
Well,
got to issue or he's got to.
No, but as far as we've had communication, right? They are fully aware of
Yep.
what their obligation is. They're not in the dark. They're just ignoring us at this point in time.
He knows
We're
what-
on vacation, either way.
He knows
Either
what he
way.
has to do, he knows what we're requesting, it's just that
But-
it's dragging on here.
I guess my, one question I wanted before was that when we did the Clawson Shopping Center, we had signs that were put up. We should have an idea of what the cost, right? I mean, we had a big, huge bond for there, but was that ever broken out as far as what would, the monument signs, what it would take to complete those? And
Well, I agree with Scott, though.
right.
10,000's reasonable, and he's not, if he has to do that and he does that, if it ends up being 13, he's not going to say, oh, never mind, and
I'm
he
not gonna
loses
do-
10.
yeah.
And we
There's
have
enough motivation.
example tonight as far as a channel sign costing $6,000.
Right. On record.
Right. It costs him nothing in the long run, it's just that he has
Oh, I know.
to give us a bond. If he doesn't do what he's required to do, then we have the money, so.
Can we at least, can we suggest that if he shows you guys that the cost for this repair is less than the 10,000, then he can present that or
Well, he can
10,000?
present that information before you, but it's got to be realistic documentation.
Well, I think what he's
Him
asking
guessing a
is,
number.
he's asking, can we say 10,000 or less if that's what he comes back with?
No, I
Keep it
wouldn't
at
do that.
10,000.
Okay.
10,000.
Channel sign is.
$6,000, I can't imagine it.
Yep.
And something that is exponentially larger is not going to be less.
Yeah,
than
and
10.
if he really has a problem with it,
Variation,
he'll come
or,
back to us and say, if he comes back, like John said, with realistic figures of saying, here's someone that's going to do this for 4,000, he'll bring it in front of us. If he doesn't, then that's because he knows the 10,000 is probably going to be the cost of it.
Greg, when is the 60 days up?
The end of the month.
So he actually won't be able to make it in front of us if he has an issue with this ruling, though? Not in time?
Well, correct. I mean, that's why we put it on the agenda tonight, because we knew we couldn't wait till the next.
And you guys are, that's great by you guys, doing your part there. All right, I'm good with this. I don't know if anybody has anything else they want to add.
What's our timeframe?
Or-
60 days? Is that what we said?
No,
No,
man.
yeah,
No, the 60
authorize
days
it
is up
through
at the end of the
end of
month.
May, as long as he posts the security.
And the security has to be submitted
10,000.
before, what date, just so we know, because you guys still have to review it, right?
Well, the city attorney will review the form of it, but it just has to happen before he gets the TCO.
And he does have, representation that has joined him at his meetings
Sure.
that can, I don't know if that person's on vacation with him or not.
Sure, I'm
but
just asking if,
certainly
once
has a
he
representative
shows
that
you
he can-
guys that,
Michelle.
You think they might have
In other
vacation
words, we're
together?
granting the
Well, it's his
TCO
son, so
exemption,
yeah, it's
contingent upon
Yeah,
the
okay.
bond. To May, whatever, and the staff is the one that makes that.
Sam's is going to be kind of in a limbo here until we get a $10,000 security.
they're good for 1 week? They've
Well,
got
they've been in
that time
limbo
to-
since the end of December. They haven't
Right.
had a
They
valid
requested a
CO.
30-day temporary C of O, even though you guys authorized a 60-day.
60.
So officially, my
So-
TCO just ended at the end of December. So
So we're not extending, we're renewing it.
you'd be creating a new
Brand new one,
TCO
yeah.
for the end of May.
Oh.
Where did the end of May come from, of what was said? I thought it
think
was
it's-
60 days. Where did the end of May-
Magical summertime.
May is
No,
last
originally
week.
it was 60 days. We're saying now this is weather-sensitive work.
Yep.
So
Okay,
it's,
that makes
the end of
sense.
May.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
Could be hopping in this.
Make a
Nothing
motion.
else?
Go.
Please. Okay. Yeah, I'll make a motion that we approve a new temporary certificate of occupancy for 246 West 14 Mile Road under the following conditions: that that they complete the site work that was approved at our last planning commission meeting, which includes reconstruction of the pole sign and planting of trees in front of the property. and that the TCO will be granted no longer than May 31st of 2018, with a $10,000 cash deposit or bond that is satisfactory to council.
That needs to be submitted by,
And we need a deadline on that.
when?
Well, just prior to issuance of the.
Yeah, he doesn't get the TCO until. the
Prior
bond
to,
is
Get
okay.
it until-
He doesn't give us the money, we don't give him the TCO.
Contingent upon.
Gotcha, okay, sorry. That's good then.
Okay, are we all good with that?
Support.
Okay, I got a motion, I have support. Roll call, please.
Ms. Prowse?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Agenda item number 9, request to approve the 2018 meeting schedule.
I will make a motion that we approve the regular meeting schedule of the Clawson Planning Commission for the year 2018. Would you like me to read all the dates?
No, thank you.
Probably not.
As presented.
As presented.
Probably not necessary. Okay. I have a motion. Do I have support for that?
Supported.
I have support. Roll call, please.
Ms. Scripture?
Yes.
Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Ms. Benton?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Kucera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Prowse?
Public discussion, items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public here? No, there's never anybody from the public here.
They're all at home on television.
Yep, they're watching us on TV.
Television audience.
Seeing no one from the public, public discussion will be closed. We're on to other business. Mr. Elliott, Mr. Elbus, Susie.
I have a few things that I can tell you about. We have some training opportunities coming up. Most of them are done for January, but on Tuesday, February 6th, we have RRC Best Practices Training 1 through 3 being put on by the MEDC up at Oakland County offices. It's a free training. It is going to be all day, but we are now in our RRC community. We are engaged in their process. So if you are able to find some time to attend this event, I strongly recommend it. There will be doing best practices training.
What is this again?
RRC, Redevelopment Ready Communities. So it is very similar to the Oakland County One Stop Ready program that we are a part of. The RRC program has a little bit more teeth and a lot more funding and technical assistance that is attached to it.
And what was the date again?
That is Tuesday, February 6th. I know, and I don't have it on me right now, I know that they are going to be doing best practices 4, 5, and 6 later in the spring, also at the county. So
And what's the cost? Free?
that is free. There is also, Oakland County Main Street is having a 2-day gig on February 15th and 16th for the Connected Downtown Tech to Trails. So that's also another free event. Just kind of looking at how downtowns are evolving in the digital age of shopping and how we engage with that as economic development and, promoters of strong business communities and downtowns, and then how do we get connected within our own little enclaves, right? So that should be interesting. And last but not least, we have capital improvements program training. I'm not entirely sure if that's all something you might be interested in, but we've got those, and we've got several opportunities for site plan review, and I know Reese and a couple of other ZBA members are attending some of the MAP training. So if there is, training that you see, like there's a planning and zoning essentials training course that the Michigan Association of Planning offers. I mean, we can also do it in-house too, and offer the training to the board as a whole. But if you see a training that you'd like to attend, I have talked to the city manager, and he has said that council's always been in favor of covering those costs. So
If
let
you-
me know.
If you have anything electronically on that you could send out to us, it'd be helpful.
Yes,
You know,
I
the-
send
the
those
flyers.
out all the time, but I will send out the latest ones.
I'm looking at one right now.
Oh, okay.
Let's see, a couple other updates. We've got Zioli's is moving along.
I'm sorry, say that name again.
Zioli's, the
Zioli's.
other half of the former half of Regeneration. We've got their building plans, they're being reviewed. So that, I mean, we'll start seeing some good construction inside soon, next month or so. 309 North Main is Chutney's. I know they've submitted their initial merchant's license. That's the former Zorba's. It's going to be an Indian vegetarian. Sounds super yummy. So I know that they're doing some interior remodeling and working with the health department to get their
What's the name of it again?
Chutney's.
Chutney's, that's
They
right.
have
Where's the other one?
a location in Farmington right now, but they're going into Zorba's,
So the other one.
309. So that we've got those, and then John told us just before the meeting, he's going to be meeting with the owner of Old Port, so I guess we can ask John for an update after he has that meeting. And then one thing we discussed at our team meeting last week was 655 South Main, the Church of Clawson. We have not, I mean, we've communicated with them, but it's been about 2 months at this point at least. And they haven't reached back out to us. We came to the consensus last week that it was probably time to show cause them again, so you may want to think about that.
Is that just for their driveway? Is there any, or parking lot? Is there anything else?
Well, they had a site plan that they never complied with, and it expired.
All right.
They never did any of the work. And so here's another example. They're occupying the building,
Yeah.
really with no CO.
Yeah.
And they brought in a revised, less ambitious site plan, and we reviewed it. It wasn't in shape to come before you for approval, and they have not reacted to those
All right.
plan reviews.
Sounds perfect then. Let's get them in.
So, I mean, we can put them on the next one if you'd like, or
Sounds good to me. How about you guys? Is there anything that's time sensitive that they need to address if, once you say, hey, here's your show cause, or, you can fix these items?
Let me just say this on any show cause, since I'm involved in it elsewhere. I think that there ought to be specifics, both as to the violation that you're show causing them on, and second is the possible consequences that might arise from a finding that you have to take action against them. So whatever administration can figure out as a consequence, it would be a recommendation to, should you find the show cause to be viable, that you want to have that in the notice as well, so they have complete information about consequences.
I've got this sheet, Jim gave it to me, I can't remember when, last year.
Oh,
A list of outstanding issues with commercial properties. And 655 South Main, Tri-County Baptist Church, occupied, yes. And it looks like they obtained a SPA on 5/26/15 based on engineering comments, later amended the site plan to reconstruct the parking lot, never completed the site work due to financial constraints. Administration has spoken to the pastor and explored possibility of utilizing the parking lot. This is quite an old document here, so can you go and talk to them and come back to us and see what the problem is?
Well, I thought we were going to give a show,
Yeah.
You want to
show cause.
go right to a show cause with them?
Well, I think what the administration's saying, tell me if I'm wrong, you guys have already reached out multiple times. Isn't the first time that you're reaching out to them?
no, it's not the first time we've reached out to them.
Okay.
Okay, so they're aware of the problem, okay.
And we're being given a recommendation for a show cause, so I think
With
we should move forward
consequences,
with one.
right?
I'm in favor of it.
But what are the
I am.
consequences?
Have them come in.
Well, there's more than that, potentially. And I think that if you feel comfortable, administration can do the show cause and just send it out. You'll have copies of it, so you'll know what the consequences are based on what we can determine from the language in the ordinance, based upon any additional expenses we might incur in that regard. I think maybe a visit to the church might be appropriate just to see if they've done any work inside without any of your knowledge. I don't know, because that would be part of it as well.
Right.
Doing work without a permit, so I think it's important to do that due diligence. So once we gather the information, we'll do the show cause and then just get a date that you feel appropriate.
When Jim shows up to do the inspection on the inside, is he to address them, to let them know that he's there to inspect in a way that they're preparing
I
for
leave
a
that
show
to his
cause?
discretion.
Okay.
If it were me, I wouldn't tell him at all. I'm
Yeah,
just there for
sure.
a visit.
I just didn't know if he had to state that or not.
No, he doesn't have to.
Okay.
I have a question, I had two questions, but I completely forgot what one of them is. But the second question is, what was this in our packet? We're supposed to do something with this?
Read it, digest.
Applicable to, have the
Very,
information?
very useful information. I
Yeah.
read the whole thing today.
Good.
It's very, very good.
Yep.
You know, I just thought we've talked about how we want to utilize our meetings if we have downtime to discuss whatever we can to improve ourselves as a board, to identify topics, to discuss topics that we feel need improvement, like talked about landscaping, how can we better improve our own process to make sure that we're getting everything that we would like to see, and we're reducing the amount of time that we have circular conversations. So we thought it might be nice to have some light reading.
So let me rephrase that. Is this something that maybe we might want to raise as a discussion topic tomorrow night?
That could be up to you.
Good.
Is this something we wanted to keep at this level?
No, if you believe tomorrow night that it complements the general tone of the discussion based on the outline you've got, do it.
Okay, just,
The goal there is to
it was
have.
great information. I was just looking for,
As many observations as possible so you can get into a game plan that you decide to work on.
I pulled a quote from it already. I pulled a quote from it already.
Oh, I've got more I can feed to you in each of your packets if you'd like me to.
Yeah,
Great, fine.
that's useful. I appreciate that. And another thing I forgot to mention tonight on our agenda, that I like that you suddenly put in parentheses, Noble Appliance, Osaka.
Yes, thank you.
That's
that
very
was
helpful.
very
I used to
good.
just scribble that in myself because you used to
Yeah,
get a
a lot of
number up
times
here and you don't know
addresses, I don't know who they
where
are.
you're at.
Usually the first thing I
So
do is
that's quite helpful.
Google.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
the-
I'll keep my board written the same way so it stays, so that the format remains.
Nice.
Oh, thanks, Susie.
Do what I can, man.
One of the things too, I mean, in terms of the agendas, is thinking through time management and how to keep the meetings moving. I know you were talking about managing circular conversations, but also what can be done, in terms of the staff doing things before it comes to the meeting, because I don't think all the things we're talking about are really pertinent for the commission in full. And so how we can think about, as we're all sitting here as volunteers, committing to 2 nights a month, how you can get us home at a decent hour. And so we can have an expectation of when we might be leaving each time. So I noticed that the agendas just seem to be getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and the conversations longer and longer and longer. So that's one thing, too, I'd like to put forth for consideration.
Sounds fantastic. I will jot that.
I know
note
you guys
down.
want to get home, too, but
Jim, anything?
Been in contact with the architect who is redoing East 14 Mile between Old Port Inn and Renshaw. The House of Opticals moving in there. He bought that building. Told me he has to give full architect's drawings for the interior remodel. They proposed a vestibule out the back. And then they were talking about murals or that, but the architect wasn't aware of that, and we'll get that wrought iron off the
Put the
side of
wrought
the
iron
building. But yeah, I told them they had to go through full site plan review. So that is a doctor's office that is highly traveled during the day. I bet you it'd be less traffic in the evening when he's shut down, but I still determine that it has to go through site plan review.
That driveway is probably, because I wasn't here when we did the Discount Fabric Did we consider the driveway to be acceptable at that point, and are we going to with this next?
That was a shared parking agreement, and they reduced, or took 2 or 3 driveways off of 14 Mile to
Okay.
reduce traffic flow.
Nice.
But is it just potholes or stuff?
Yeah, I think,
or-
Very bad.
yeah, it's pretty, quite a few.
Okay, so then we'll, I'll just note that, and I'll contact the owners of the property.
Great.
And tell them that they got to repair the driveway. So.
Yeah, and obviously, I would expect, your expert opinion on that, not so much mine, but just a suggestion as saying, I think it probably needs to be reviewed, and possibly suggested to them.
Yeah, it's the pothole season. In fact, I
Right.
hit one on the way into work today. I didn't get a flat tire, but Susie's husband blew out a tire today. So.
Oh, my gosh.
Was he driving around?
Did he just drive off the road?
Hole anymore.
That's a sinkhole, yeah.
It doesn't start till February, though.
There you go.
Any news on Old Port? I understand they're going back to change their sign back
That was
again?
my second question. Clawson, one of the website, or whatever, one of the neighborhood sites, blew up about that.
They're going to go back to the old name.
Well, and the big debate back and forth was, is the owner the same
Okay,
owner? Who's the
so-
cook?
Well,
All right.
Mr.
There
Kingsup.
there's one property owner, and Kingsup he's got a meeting scheduled with him. I think you said next Monday or Tuesday. But so there's one property owner, but it has gone through.
Yeah, change your
Oh my
hands.
gosh, at least probably 4, 6 different manager cooks over the last, well, this is the start of my 4th year, so we'll see, just 3 years. There's probably been 4, 6. And it all started when the original, I believe it was the original, you guys can correct me, one of the original cooks passed away. And then that started kind of this merry-go-round of cooks. So
why
the
did it go to,
last-
so same owner Robbie's, same owner Old
Same
Port, same owner Robbie's?
Same
Different
property
operator.
owner.
Okay.
Same property
Different
owner.
restaurant.
Different restaurateurs.
Okay. So now do we have a new one from Robbie's to going back to the Old Port?
We have Luigi, or at least Luigi was the last gentleman to come into the building department within the last month, saying that he is, or the last 2 months, we'll give him 2 months. The last couple of months saying that he is the new operator of Old Port, and he is the one taking it back from Robbie's
To Old Port.
to Old Port.
But he's not the same guy who was cooking for Robbie's or managing Robbie's, and not the same guy that managed the Old Port.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct. You are correct.
So new guy, old name,
Hopefully,
Same owner of property.
yeah, same property
but
owner.
same property owner, but
Okay.
new restaurateur.
Yes, new restaurateur. Yes,
His
you
name,
like that?
new restaurateur.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to jump right online because that was a very long conversation.
So-
I'm sure it
Argument.
was. Was it on the Clawson page? Because I saw that one too.
You saw that too?
In all of that movement, they haven't done anything to force into a site plan.
That's true.
That's
Since we amended the ordinance, it's only required if the property changes ownership. The same guys own the property.
Their sign's down, so I guess
So we're going to have a candid discussion, the owner and I,
okay.
on Tuesday. We've had several conversations before, and I think I will say that it probably will be a little one-sided from the standpoint of my state of mind and where they ought to go. And we'll see what happens, and then I'll report that to administration, and then eventually you'll get a report on it as well. But it is a development.
Okay.
Anything new on the Burger King thing, anything there?
At our last staff meeting last Thursday, I was directed by the development team to go after or enforce nuisance ordinances and code enforcement on the property. But the last time they were in front of you guys was actually August of last year.
What property?
Wait.
We didn't catch.
This
The
is
old
Blue
Burger
Moon.
King. Blue
Blue Moon, the old
Farm Grill.
Burger King, 172.
Good.
I must have been on vacation.
So, but actually, the last time they were in front of you guys was August of last year.
No, I think it was May.
They got site plan approval, they never complied with even the conditions of approval in terms of producing a compliant site plan.
So that they could move on to, I think it was May. I think it was May.
think it was
Because
more
their,
than a
their
year.
site plan expired in December of 2016, and so they had to come back, and I think they got approval, I want to say like May 24th, and if that's the right date, I'm
But didn't they
super nerd,
fire
but-
the architect and then there was a delay?
Well,
Or was that before that?
there's constant personality challenges with that whole group, but I think they never submitted the compliance plans that they needed to move on to the engineering step. So they bailed at engineering again.
Okay.
Okay. I know Glenn has a problem with Detroit Burger
So
Bar.
Detroit Burger, I thought their lighting was for Christmas. Apparently it's not. And was that ever approved on a site plan? I don't think it was.
I
It
mean, I think the
is
last-
one of the most glaring eyesores I've seen downtown. And we've had
What is it?
I just,
No,
it caught me by surprise. And wait a second.
When
now
I got the
Christmas lights
complaint
are
from
down.
Glenn, I want Barb to do code enforcement on it before we go through show cause.
Yeah, let's go talk to them first, see what they
Yeah.
say, and then if they give you any problem, then we'll move into a show.
Well, the
cause.
problem is that, how's it attached, right? Is it something that just quickly come down?
Well, that becomes their problem, not ours. Yeah. We'll have
Okay,
that looked
all
at.
right, I'd like to know, because I mean, it's an eyesore. Caught me by surprise.
And driving around town, I happened to be over on Anderson Court here a few days back, and there's a building down there, and I didn't write down the number. It's the one that has all the containers stacked up behind it. There are all these plastic, huge containers stacked 5 high. I think we talked about it before. And the records, I think you gave them something like 90 to 100 days to do something about that.
Because they said they had an order that they had to ship out.
And well, that was
And they
quite
haven't,
a,
it's still stacked high?
that's quite a, they're still stacked there, that's quite high. I'm sure the site plan approves them for having a parking lot, but that's not a parking lot, it's a storage facility they're using it as, and they're jamming up the traffic on the street, I think.
Actually, with them, I'll double check the records, but I had a commitment from them that they weren't gonna store stuff out there, so that might be a show cause coming back in front
Yeah,
of
that
you
was
guys.
my note, I think
It was a non-conforming use.
Yeah.
And we allowed for substitution of it, and I think, if I remember correctly,
Correctly, when the zoning board of appeals allowed the substitution, it was on the condition that there be no outdoor storage. I think that's the way it worked.
Yeah, my note was that we gave them 90 to 100 days to straighten it out, and it's been quite a while since then. And it's a company on Anderson Court,
Western Global.
Western Global, yeah.
Or the cul-de-sac right at the end.
I think that's all I have. Anybody else have any? Nothing? Motion to
See you
adjourn?
guys tomorrow night.
Oh, yeah, we gotta be all ready tomorrow.
And where is that again? Is it at the community center? Okay.
Community room. Oh, community center.
In here, at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay,
Second.
got motion, got support. Roll call?
Aye.
Mr. Watson?
I'll do it.
Yes.
Ms. Fenton? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Casera?
Yes.
Mr. McHale?
Yes.
Ms. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Scripture?
Thank you, everyone.
And for our television audience.